Good morning, everyone. This is Shirley Solis. Now, give me just a moment. I am going to make sure. Because I'm hearing myself. Yesterday we had some problem with the sound. So today I want to make sure that that is not, again, an issue.
All right. So if you guys are live, then go ahead and let me know that you can hear me, because yesterday, again, we had an issue with the sound. So I want to make sure that that is not a problem today, okay? So if you are watching live, then please go ahead and tell me in the chat room that you can hear me, so we can go ahead and get started today with our awesome, hair thing, with our session of back to school Q&A, where we're going to be talking about the most common questions that you probably have when your children are going to school. All right, so go ahead and send me a message on the chat room to let me know that you are able to hear me. So Kara, Alina, hey Alina, how are you? And Gus, let me know that you are able to hear me live. Good, yes, the sound is working. Okay, so that's great. Awesome. Now let me go ahead and just get us live on Facebook, because we're also doing that to make sure that everyone on Facebook can learn from this as well. So give me just a second, and we're gonna go live. All right, we're gonna call this back to school. So tell me, how's everybody doing this morning? Tell me in the chat box, like, what is the biggest question that you have? What are you waiting to get answered today, besides all the things that I already mentioned? So it's gonna be really, really good for that. So go ahead and write that in the chat box. All right, so very good. We're going back to school live over here. All right, so everybody, good morning. My name is Shirley Solis. We are going to, Shirley Solis, they call me the 305 mom. And I see myself, I have like some hairs that are out of place. They really bug me. So anyway, so they call me the 305 mom. And basically, I hope moms live life the 305 way, which is basically a very fun way. 305 is the area code for Miami. And here in Miami, we do things in a very fun, celebratory kind of way. We just celebrate life. And I feel like parenting has to be like that. Parenting has to be a very fun experience, a very easy experience, and it has to be a way to celebrate each and every day. So this is what I'm hoping to help you achieve. And today we're going to be covering the back to school Q&A questions that I'm sending out. So something like, my child not getting up in the morning, my child is not like my teacher, those kind of common questions, okay? If you have any other questions at all that I can answer for you, then go ahead and send them to me, either in the chat room if you're joining us through the live stream, or on Facebook Live as well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, all right? So first things first. First question is, my child is not getting up in the morning. What do I do? So I think every parent has had this situation where they show up in the room and it kind of looks like this. You show up in the room and you're like, Mary, wake up. Mary is like, and then you go over there, you wake them up. They're like, okay, mom. And then you leave the room, go do whatever you need to do. You come back 5 minutes later, and they're still asleep, zonked, asleep. So you come back and you're like, Mary, wake up. And then, of course, the child goes back to sleep. You go back to doing whatever you were doing, thinking that they're going to wake up, and they actually don't. So you go back and you do that about 5 times until finally you get really upset because you realize you're going to be late. This child is not doing what they need to be doing, and it's just getting you super frustrated. So we are going to really empower you so that you can make decisions and you can make choices and empower your children to do what they need to do in the morning without you being the nag every single day. Got it? Who's with me? All right, awesome. So very first things is like, first thing we need to realize that in order for children to get up early in the morning, it starts the day before. So that's not something that we do that morning and go, okay, they should be up and ready by 6 in the morning. No, or by 7 in the morning or whatever. No, children, they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So we need to be considering how much time are they sleeping each and every day. Are they, if they're getting enough sleep, then, they should be going to sleep probably like no later than 9 p.m. But here's the thing. The thing is that the majority of kids today, they have an iPhone, they have an iPad, they have some sort of electronic device in their room. So most likely they're going to bed, but they're staying up for an hour, who knows, maybe even an hour and a half. So you have to be really cautious and make sure that, yeah, the child may be going to bed, but they may not necessarily be sleeping. So you want to make sure that the child is actually asleep by 9 p.m., okay? So they can get enough hours in their sleep, because a child will need anywhere between 8, 10, even 12 hours, depending on their age and the amount of mental and physical energy that they're putting in their work daily. This is true for adults as well, but anyway. And all with that said is you also want to make sure that prior to them going to sleep, that they do not watch an electronic device for about an hour prior to them going to sleep, okay? So make sure that you get that part down, because what happens is the lighting in these electronic devices, it's a blue light, and it sends messages to the brain, making it think that it's still daytime. So then the brain is just saying, oh, it's still daytime, it's still daytime. So kids don't go to bed, and then what happens eventually, because of how the brain is processing the light, is the child doesn't go into that deep REM sleep that they should have. So they might be asleep, but it's not the deep sleep that they should have, where they feel fully and completely rested, okay? So that's first things first. Second thing that needs to happen in the morning is I give my children, like, they need to have their own alarm clock. I actually have a conversation with them about the fact that they're responsible for their own, for waking up in the morning. Like, they're responsible for their life. I get it that if they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, you're still going to be waking them up. But after 6 years old, you want to slowly transition them out of that job of the one that wakes you up in the morning, because that's not your job. Like, you want to get out of that job, because they need to be empowered and they need to be able to manage themselves to take care of those things that need to happen. So what really needs to go on is, first of all, have that conversation and saying, I've been waking you up all this time in the morning, but it's really not my job. And so I'm going to empower you now to go ahead and start waking up in the morning. So then you need to engage the child in creating solutions for that to happen. So how exactly do you do that? Well, you exactly do that by finding an alarm clock that works for the child. Like, don't use the same sound that you've been using for all of this time. You need a different sound. So if you've been using something that's like, then use something that goes brr, 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 brr. Why? Because the previous sound, the child is already used to zoning it out. Like, they're used to removing it from your mind, from their mind. So you want to make sure that they're using an alarm clock that is actually, the sound is different than what they were using before, okay? Now, by the way, you guys in the chat box, you are, particularly the people that are watching on Facebook Live, you can tag others on the comments to make sure that they come in and join us now, all right? So go ahead and do that too. All right, so you want to use a different sound, and you also want to practice, because life is about practice. Everything in our life is about neurology, which basically is the power of habits. So when a child is used to ignoring a sound and now you bring in a different sound, then you want to already begin to create an association of what the new behavior is going to look like. So what that would look like is you make the child lay down, like, just for practice sake, you make the child lay down in the bed, they're laying down, and then you play that sound that they agreed that was going to be the sound that was going to wake them up. And then you tell them, okay, when you hear the sound, you open your eyes and you jump out of bed. And you just practice that a few times. Why? Because you're getting them set up. You're getting their neurology set up so that they can take action to what they're needing to do. All right. After that, then you want to make sure that then you create other strategies. All right. So something really fun that I would do, and this is just me because I'm a 3 or 5 mom and I like to keep things fun and wacky and just like totally unexpected for my kids, like an everyday celebration, and it's fun, is I would actually get a water gun. So just in case, like, for those days where it's not happening, like, or right at the beginning where you're trying to make them create that association, is I would get a water gun, like a little one, and I would come in and wake my children up when the alarm is going off, and like trigger that in the morning. I mean, they can even have their own water gun too, and you can have like a 3-minute water gun fight, and how fun would that be? Now, if you have a young adult or teenager in the home who may not necessarily appreciate that, I get it. Okay, no problem. But it could be fun. Okay, so use it if you have a good relationship with your children. If you feel like things are they're not going to get completely offended or whatever. And if that is the case, then you need to work on some emotional health with your child where things can get so light and the offenses have been forgiven to a point where they're going to laugh when something like this happens, okay? And if that's the case, then I'll tell you a little bit about my program, Powerful Parenting Academy, because we go into in-depth information as far as how to develop emotional health in your family so that you're always connected. All right, so with that said, the water gun would be something that I would definitely use, okay? Something else that I've used with the boys, and this is super fun with boys if you have boys specifically, is that sound from the Army, the one that goes, well, that one is one that I play in the background, and the boys are like, yeah, soldiers. Like, they feel really cool when that song comes on, and I played it for a really long time. They really liked it, so I would say go ahead and use that song if you want to as well. Now, last but not least, here is kind of like the most extreme thing that I would do, and the most extreme thing that I would do if the children, if you've tried all these other things and it just hasn't worked, is you have to get to the point where you are not so concerned for your child that you're not willing to let them live their consequences. Children need to learn to live their consequences. And what that means, people, is that if they don't get up in the morning, then they just don't go to school. Like, it's not your job to make sure that they're getting ready. Eventually, you have to let go of that responsibility. So I would say, look, if you're not ready at this time, then I'm just not going to take you to school. And yes, they would miss school, but you have to understand, children thrive on certainty. They want things to be, even if they hate school, typically they don't want, even if they hate school, they still know they have to go to school. Something in them is like, I've got to do the right thing. I've got to go to school. So the moment that you say, well, I'm just not taking you to school, and that day you literally are in bed and don't get up to take them to school because they didn't wake you up, that is the day that they're going to freak out. They're literally going to freak out, and they're going to go, wow, mom and dad, they've gone nuts. They are not taking me to school. Something's gone seriously wrong. I better wake up on my own because something is drastically changing. And because they need the certainty, then they are going to go ahead and need more of that, okay? So they're going to do what they need to do because suddenly you've gone mad. So this may be a little bit different. This is going to work perfect for, like, if you have an 8, 9, 10, up to 12, 13-year-old probably. If you have a 14-year-old, it might still work depending on their personality. At 15, 16, 17, they might very well be like, I could care less if you take me to school. I'm ready to drop out. But those are other issues. Those are more emotional health issues. Somewhere deep down inside, that child has deeply disconnected from their emotions. They're deeply disconnected from the world. These solutions that I'm giving you are for children who are still connected. They're still associated to their life. And so if you have those extreme issues, then those are emotional health issues. And again, the program that I have, Powerful Parenting Academy, is going to help you with that, okay? So let me actually write it here so you guys can know, for the people that are watching on the live stream. All right. Very good. All right, very good. So you want to make sure that that's kind of how you handle that, all right? And I tell you, that's going to give you results all the way, because children, oh, by the way, I also will play out like this really long story of, that's okay. I mean, if you don't want to go to school or you don't get up in the morning, then you'll just get Fs. Eventually, you'll fail the grade. And then once you fail the grade, then you're going to be about like super tall, and all of your friends in the classroom are going to be like shorter than you. And then all of your friends will go to a grade older than you. And then eventually they'll graduate and you'll still be in the class below you. But that's what I'm like, I'm okay with that if you're okay with that. So always always making sure that they understand that it's their consequences and it's their choices, okay? But I do enjoy that part of like playing out all of the consequences in a very detached way so that they can get associated to what's going on. And you just really care, because it has to be, the reason why they're not getting up in the morning is because it's your job. The moment it stops being your job and it becomes their job and they become engaged in the process, they'll care. They'll start caring. All right. Okay. So question number 2, send me a bunch of hearts and a bunch of like thumbs up or likes or whatever, if you're enjoying this conversation this morning. Okay. Second, my child does not like my teacher. So my child does not like my teacher. What do you do about that? Okay. So yeah, what I found is that today parents are not like, teachers are no longer always going into the profession because they're deeply committed to it, because they absolutely love it. It's not happening that way. So what's mostly happening is there's a lot of teachers out there. They may not have the same patience as before. They may not have the same calling to be able to teach children in the same way as before. So parents are, what's happening is there isn't like that deep connection and that deep partnering between teachers and students and parents like the way that it used to be. I'm not saying that there's not teachers out there who are doing a great job. There are, but I know for a fact that they're not as popular, not as common. Just the same as parents. There's parents out there, like they're just, there's a lot of parents out there, but not all parents are deeply committed, unfortunately. Sometimes it's simply because they don't have the tools. They don't know what to do. Nobody taught them. But, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I love to be able to teach parents what it is that they need to do so that life can be an everyday celebration when it comes to parenting. All right. So what I would say is, first of all, I would handle the easiest thing when it comes to being a parent with the whole teacher thing. Okay, is it that I would ask the child, is it that you heard someone tell you that this teacher is not good? Is that why you're not like them? Or is it because you simply don't like them? So if it's gossip's sake, somebody told your child and that's why now this child does not like the teacher, then we would say you clearly let them know, you know what, that's gossip. So if it's gossip, then you want to make sure that you address that and like nip it in the butt and saying, look, let's not make a judgment on someone just because of what somebody else told you. All right. You always have to be willing to teach your children that people need a second chance, that people need an opportunity to prove themselves, and not prove themselves. That's kind of a bad word, but like that they need to be able to really show and put their best foot forward. And then the person, your child or you, can make a judgment based on that, but not always like assuming that someone told you that's a bad teacher, therefore that's a bad teacher. Okay. That's the first thing. Second, what I would also address at that point is, if it's an ongoing thing where the child is not wanting to go to school because the teacher's just not being as patient with them when they're not understanding a question, or maybe they're feeling somewhat rejected, is the second thing that I would do is I would look at my own life. And in looking at my own life, this is something that I always do, and it's a habit that I have. Remember, I'm a master NLP coach. I've been coaching parents for a really long time, and I've been working on my personal mindset and my own personal heart and my soul and my emotions for the last 7 years very actively. So I've been very used to knowing that my children are my mirror image. Whatever I'm seeing in them is basically a reflection, whether it's physically, emotionally, or spiritually, of who I am. So that has led me to go into the habit of making sure that then I come in and that I process information, and I start, like in the case of a teacher they don't like, I would ask myself, okay, how are my relationships with my authority? Did I ever have someone that was taking advantage of their authority position in my life? How was my relationship with my teachers? And like just checking in inside to making sure that there is not something wacky going on inside of me that I'm really projecting onto my children. So checking on that first, and then get rid of any blocks that you need to get rid of, because that's probably going to be one of the number one things. Again, your children are your projection, and they've got every single part of your DNA and then some that they're bringing up. So you're wanting to make sure that that stuff is checked up on. So once you've checked up on that, then I would go to the next step and have that conversation. Well, what son or daughter, what are you feeling when you're relating to this teacher? Is it that they're being impatient? And then I would give them tools to properly address the situation with the teacher. So if the teacher starts getting angry at them when they're not learning, I would literally, again, practice with them how is it that they have to speak to the teacher if the teacher is not respecting them as people? So if the teacher's being impatient with them and they're getting angry, then saying, you know, Miss whatever, I'm not feeling, you know, Miss whatever, I'm not feeling respected by your tone of voice. And I know that sounds kind of harsh because we would never think of telling children that, like that it sounds disrespectful almost, but it's not. It's literally about making sure that the child understands how to set proper boundaries, how to set proper limits with a teacher. And by the way, this is something that I teach my children to do with me as well. Like not right now anymore because I've worked with my emotions a lot more and I'm very respectful with them. But back in the day, several years ago, when I was still the mom that would scream at them and clearly was disrespectful to them, and I started learning about this emotional health and I started changing my life to making sure that then I lived according to my core values of respecting humans and especially my children, then I told them that that was a process. Like sometimes you come to an awareness of, I need to respect my children, but you may not always quickly or immediately begin to assert those new habits and those new belief systems. So until that takes place, what I would tell them is, look, I'm trying to change. I'm trying to not yell. I'm trying not to, you know, toss this pen right at you. I'm trying to not do these things. So until my new habits become a reality in my life, then I give you full permission to protect yourself from me. Because the reality is children need to understand that even those who love them sometimes will hurt them. And that's just what is, right? Like we're humans, we're family, we're gonna, you know, there's gonna be things that are happening. So even those that love you sometimes hurt you in some way. And it's just a conversation that needs to happen. So because of that, children and all humans need to be aware of how they need to protect themselves, not like shelter themselves, but protect themselves and put boundaries that are going to set the limits that are going to keep that person safe and healthy without them, the other person running over them. Okay. So I hope that that makes sense to you. I hope that that's clear to you, but I would definitely have that conversation. And then last but not least, don't be afraid to have a conversation with the teacher. Even if your child is like, no, mom, it's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. You know, if the teacher is not able to really truly respect your child, then there needs to be a conversation about what's making your child uncomfortable. Now, you also don't want to be like, oh, I'm here to protect my child each and every time. No, use your judgment as a parent. You know better. You know what's needed in the situation. So use your better judgment and make sure to go ahead and just keep track of that. You know, just check in on those and your intuition as a parent, knowing what's needed, and always think about what is going to empower the child more. You know, check in on any fears that you may be feeling. Is your child not wanting to tell the teacher because of fear? Or is your child not wanting to tell the teacher because they're shy or whatever? So anything that is motivated out of a negative emotion is not a good emotion to have. All right, so let me see, someone raised their hand over here. Okay, feel free to send me a question on the chat box if you have that, okay? All right, so next, my child doesn't know how to make friends. Well, here's the thing. That one, again, you have to check in with you, okay? And this is a very common thing. There's a lot of shy children today. There's a lot of grouping, you know, there's a lot of groups that kind of get clicked on, children who've known each other from other grades, and then you suddenly are the child is a new kid on the block and nobody wants to be their friend. So what I don't like to do is to put too much attention into that. So if the child verbalizes that, become aware of the fact that, okay, my child is not having an easy time making friends. So what I would do is make sure that rather than like, how are you doing? Do you have new friends today? Do you have new friends? Like start talking about that all the time, is I would instead come in and say, okay, think about it as a parent. What can I do with my child to empower this child to build better relationships and connections with those around them? So how does that work and how does that happen? Well, it happens by you first getting yourself some friends. If you're the kind of person as a parent that you don't like other people, if you're just like work, home, you know, maybe your mom, maybe your dad, and you like don't surround yourself with other people, then your child is going to have a really hard time socializing with others as well. So you want to make sure that you are committed to making relationships and building relationships with other people, because that is not just going to be good for you. You need a support system, but you also need a support system for your family. You need a support system for your children. You need to develop the social skills. See, my children have been homeschooled. I've been homeschooling for 16, 17 years almost. And my children never went to school, and my little ones still haven't gone to a regular public school system or anything. And yet they're extremely social. And why are they social? Because socialization does not depend on whether they hang out with children all day. It depends on their skills, the skills that they have that are going to allow them to connect with other people each and every day, okay? So you need to make sure that your children are developing the skills by being around other people, by getting them to step outside of their comfort zone and going to order their own meal or ordering their own food whenever the waiter is asking for it, by getting them to talk to the USPS person, getting them to go deposit money in the bank, no matter what their age, just getting them outside their comfort zone so they can develop communication skills that are going to serve them in the best way. Now, that's also true because that's going to give them confidence to get outside, to have conversations with other peers their age. And so what else I would do is I would help them to know what they're really good at, okay? Because that's going to boost up their confidence. Like, what are you good at? Usually a child that is really, hold on, guys, give me a moment. Go, Iris. Go, Iris. Sorry. Okay, so the dogs were coming in and there was all this little noise and they keep coming in again. Iris, go. The moment when you have to put a barricade on your doors so nobody bothers you. All right, here we go. We're back. And we're talking about friends. Okay, so you also want to help them find what are they really good at. Usually all children are good in something, right? So they might be good in drawing, they might be good in running, they might be good in something that's other than a non-academic task or subject. So give them the option to develop the non-academic, to see what they're good at in things that are good other than the non-academics, right? So sports, like whatever they're good at, and help them to build confidence. Why? Because usually as humans, we like to hang out with those people that have developed a specific skill. So when someone is really good at something, like when they're like, wow, that person speaks so well, or wow, that person does jujitsu so well, or wow, that person sings so well, that usually attracts people to them. So make sure that you're helping them develop some sort of skill and helping them understand what they're really good at. That way they can get more confident and they can make friends easier, okay? And practice. You have to role play. Like one of the big things that I do with children all the time is like, you just role play. You got to role play conversations. You got to role play life. That's what you're there for. You're not there to cushion them up and make like, poor baby, you don't have any friends. You're going to make friends. People will like you. You're there to help them get outside of their comfort zone. You're there to make sure that they are talking to others, that they're not shy about things. But how do you do that? You get them to role play constantly. Role play, role play, role play. All right. So that's the answer to the question, my child doesn't know how to make friends, which leads me into the next question, which is my child has low self-confidence in learning. What do I do? So practically speaking, the very first thing that I'm going to teach you is a process called the learning state. This is good for adults. It's good for children, no matter what. So all of us have an absorption of information each and every day that we consume. Like there's thousands and thousands of millions of pieces of information coming at us at once. Like right now, even as I'm sitting here, even though I'm focused on speaking to you, I'm also aware, unconsciously aware of the fact that window is slightly open, or that it's daytime over here, that I have my board over here. Like everything around me, my mind is absorbing. And at some point, some of it is saying, okay, I don't need this information. This isn't important. It's not important for me to later remember that the light was on or that it was daytime outside. Some things are relevant and some things are not relevant. So With all of that, what we want to do is make the mind more alert and more open to absorb the information that is coming our way. So in order to help children become more confident in learning specifically, using what's called the learning state will allow them to absorb the information and properly file it into their unconscious mind for them to later be able to find that information. So if the teacher is going over the math facts or over some sort of whatever information, then by getting into learning state, the child will absorb it in a better way. So what is the learning state? The learning state is basically the first time that you are getting started in the morning. The child is sitting in their classroom, they're sitting at a desk, they're looking at the teacher, just finding a far spot on the wall, like away from you, just finding that far spot on the wall, and then just focusing on that spot for a little while, just until they start expanding their peripheral vision. Okay, and can 6-year-olds do this? Absolutely. You don't have to use, you can even use the word peripheral vision. I mean, you can use something else like your, broad vision or whatever. And so helping them expand that peripheral, like they stay focused on that point, but then they expand that peripheral vision so that after a while, they're seeing what's going on here and what's going on here. And then they can just get into the normal state of learning that they are used to in paying attention to the teacher. So by being on the learning state, they're going to be able to absorb the information that the teacher is portraying in a much better way, okay? Now that's on the practical side. On the other sense of like the overall self-confidence, again, you want to check in with you, okay? Are you a person that lacks confidence? Are you the kind of person who isn't really processing the liking of, like, are you feeling like you lack confidence in an area? Are you feeling like there's something, did they call you dumb or did they call you stupid when you were little? I mean, if that's the truth, that's stuff that you want to deal with. That's garbage that you have somehow deep in, connected in your unconscious mind. And you want to make sure that you're not believing those lies, that you want to make sure that you're not being affected by those things. And how does that happen? By making sure that you work on them, that you recognize it and you just like go, okay, yeah, I was called this. And because what happens is, like I said earlier, all of that DNA, all of that mental images, all of those habits you passed on to your children as some sort of, as in the DNA when you created them. So you want to make sure to be alert to those things because again, your children are your projection. Now, once you've addressed that, I would say there are practical things that you can do to give your child to help them develop more self-confidence. I personally have found that sports like jujitsu, taekwondo, karate, or a specific instrument like learning to play piano, learning to sing, those kind of things. But I would say I probably would lean more towards the martial arts, and I'm a little biased. My children have taken martial arts and MMA since they were 4 and 5 years old. And I have literally seen the correlation between that sport and their level of confidence. Because there's just something about being able to defend yourself. So it's one thing to be able to play baseball, but it's another to be able to defend yourself as a human and self-defense. And it's not about being violent. It's not about fighting. It's not about any of that. It's just simply about like what it does for you, the level of discipline that is acquired when a child has to learn all of the things that they learn in MMA, karate, and taekwondo. So, of course, don't put them into just any school. Make sure that you research, make sure that it's a school that is really teaching character traits, that they're, in Miami, in the Crossings, we have American Karate Institute, which is where my children have gone, which is where Alexis and the other boys are, well, Alexis got his black belt and the other boys are getting their black belt. So that's the one I highly recommend because they are by far the best. But what all of that, consider that in team sports, it's about the team. It isn't always about the individual. And in developing self-confidence, you want to develop confidence in the individual, not in the entire team. So, and that's just me. Again, I'm a little biased because I always prefer like a single sport as opposed to a group sport. Where I think you develop the most unity as a team is actually in the family. Like when everybody has to come together and clean the house, that's what I consider a team sport, right? Okay. The other thing that I want to reiterate as far as developing the self-confidence is also what we already spoke about, and it's that you're needing to find something that the child is really good at and then just getting them to become better and better at it. And whatever they're not good at, but like and I'm not a big person on saying, okay, you need to work on your weaknesses, because there's clearly things that I'm not necessarily good at and I don't want to be good at, right? Like I could care less about becoming good at everything, but I know what I want to become good at, or what I need to become good at. So with that in mind, as a child, there may be things that they do need to become good at, that they're not necessarily weaknesses, but they're life skills that they need to learn. So I would focus on specific life skills that are going to give them the boost of confidence. What life skills are those? You know what? Life skills like being able to make themselves a sandwich, being able to make a meal for the entire family, being able to clean the house or clean a bathroom, do their own laundry, being able to use a knife to cut a carrot or a tomato. Like, you know, the United States is the most overprotective country when it comes to children. And I don't know when this happened, but we are totally harming and sheltering our children in a way that's not beneficial to them. We are so overprotective. We don't want them to climb trees. We don't want them to go near water. We don't want them to, everything is based on fear. We go to the beach, no kids, parents are like, be careful, you're going to drown. Be careful, the shark is coming. Be careful, you're going to go too far. It's like everything is be careful, and it's based out of fear. And we just can't parent like that, okay? That's not going to work. You're instilling fear in your child if you're doing that. So you need to stop it, because that's not going to work, and it's not going to serve your child. That's not going to help them know what their boundaries are, what's healthy and what's not. So rather than instilling the fear, I'd say empower your child. Just be there to watch them. So what if they go too far? There's lifeguards. Keep an eye on them the whole time. Don't be chitty-chatting over here, but keep an eye on them. Find another adult that is willing to swim with them a little farther. If your child is climbing a tree, could they fall down and break an arm? Absolutely. But I tell you what, if they most likely won't, if you help them to know their muscles and to know where they need to position their hands, because you're allowing them to trust their bodies when they're climbing trees and stuff, they're probably not going to fall. And if they do, most likely they're not going to die. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but they're not. Your child is not going to die. They might break an arm, and that happens, but they probably won't. So why? Because you've allowed them to go to that mile. So don't be afraid to let them do all these different things, because that improves their self-confidence. All right, so that's self-confidence. Okay, now I want to take just a few minutes to interject here and talk to you about Powerful Parenting Academy, because we have a new class coming up next week. And for all of those of you that are really committed to raising powerful and amazing children, this is definitely something that I would want you to consider. Powerful Parenting Academy is a 2-month coaching program, group coaching program that I create for parents, where I teach 4 powerful pillars. These 4 powerful pillars are the pillars that I've identified literally raise champions, literally raise leaders, literally raise children who have strong character, who are totally well-rounded, and who have the strong emotional health that they deserve. Okay, so these are the children that you're wanting to raise, to make sure that you leave a legacy in the world, that you are making a difference in the world, through your children, that your children grow up to be the most confident that they can be, the most powerful that they can be, the happiest that they can be, the most successful that they can be in this world, to leave an impact and a legacy. So that program, what is it? It's basically 4 modules that are online that you watch on your own. And then after each module, we get together in a group setting through phone or through the internet, whichever one you choose. And then we address the issues of each individual parent based on the module that we just saw. So the very first module that we work on is the family vision, creating that vision for your family, creating that perfect goals of where you're going, and identifying the family culture that you're wanting to use. Why are the majority of problems happening in the families? Because there's a culture outside of your family that is stronger than the culture that you have inside of your family. So what's happened is you haven't identified your family culture, and I have a specific process, like step-by-step to do that is going to help you work on that. As a bonus, you get my teachings and my lessons on how you create a weekly family meeting, which is absolutely exceptional. I give you the structure of how that happens, what needs to happen to get everybody on the family engaged, even if your husband is not on board. For those women who are like, but my husband doesn't want to do this. Well, I'll make sure that I teach you ways where your husband's going to be loving what you're doing with this program. Next, we'll work on character. That's the following week. We work on character training. Character is the most powerful tool that you can use with children. Okay, character becomes their inner voice rather than you nagging all the time. There becomes the way, like it becomes who they are. So I teach you how I've taught character to my children over the last 21 years and what I've done to make sure that they're successful children who manage themselves from the inside out. Next, we work on getting them to be totally well-rounded. How can you get a child to be totally well-rounded where they can speak to a city officer, city mayor, where they can speak to a little child, when they can speak to an elderly person, where they can be totally well-rounded? How do you do that? Well, it's basically by helping them become well-rounded, by creating a pillar and a support system that's constantly helping them grow with life skills, with resources that are about creating an environment of growth. Then last but not least, we talk about the emotional health component in the home because that is a lifesaver. I think that is probably the one pillar where today, if it's not happening, we don't know where children are going. Emotionally speaking, children today need emotional health more than ever. That's why kids are cutting themselves. Suicide is the second largest cause of death in children, ages 13 to 18. That's why, so many children, even good students, are getting depressed and attempting to commit suicide. Why? Because of the emotional health, because of all of the stuff that's being sent to them from the media, all of this stuff that's happening in social media, the dysfunction in families, it's just going crazy. So we need to provide our children ways to manage themselves and to protect themselves and to know how to take care of their emotional health. And that's where we learn that. And yes, we deal with your baggage too in that module. So that is after every single one of those modules, we do a group coaching call. And it's all about providing value for you. It's guaranteed if after the 60 days you don't feel that this program, Powerful Parenting Academy, was well worth your time, then you know what? I give you your money back, no problem. So how much does it cost? I'm going to give you a link. It's obviously very affordable. It's something that even today you can get started with $0 down, because I believe that every parent needs to be involved in this. Even if you have good kids, even if your family is already doing well, if you're not thriving as a family, if you're not doing exceptionally well as a family, then you need this program. Why? Because I don't want you to come to me 2 months later, 2 years later and say, my child did this, I should have. No, you should have, would have, could have. That doesn't work for your child. You can't take any chances with your child. We're not living in those times. You need things that are going to help you guys be totally strong, totally powerful, easily and confidently, moving forward each and every day. So what you can do, just after we're done with this back to school Q&A, and there is me with the live stream, is just go to that. That's Powerful Parenting Academy. The link is shirleysolis.com/parenting. You should see it on your screen, shirleysolis.com/parenting. And in that link, you will have a training where I teach you more about the 4 pillars. That's more content for you, and it's free content, so go ahead and watch it. Why not? And then after that, I explain in more detail how the program works, and you're welcome to join us because we're having a class that's starting next week. So make sure that you do that, people, because really, I think that, kids today, we can't take any chances on the success of our children. We're not living in the times that we used to live. Today, we need to be empowered in a totally different way. All right, so back to streaming. If you guys have any questions regarding that, just feel free to email me, shirley@shirleysolis.com. shirley@shirleysolis.com. Feel free to email me, and I will be happy to help you answer any questions that you have regarding the program. Okay? All right, the next question is, what do I do if my child is getting bullied? Well, the very first thing I tell you is we definitely don't want to focus so much on the bullying, okay? Because notice what's happening. We focus so much on bullying, and then there is more attention that's being brought into it, so bullying is happening more and more. What I think is, like, as a society, we do things backwards a lot, and it doesn't help us. We focus so much on the negative, like don't bully, bullying, anti-bullying programs. Well, guess what? We are telling the unconscious mind what to focus on. So children begin to act this out, they begin to play it out, and in bringing the awareness, we're actually creating more fault at it. So we're bringing it more into our minds and into the actions of children, because children from ages 0 to about 8 are highly impressionable, highly impressionable. So my strategy is more that of, okay, rather than talking about bullying, why don't we talk more about honor and what honor is and how we can honor one another? So talk about what honor is, and then also teach children to have those proper boundaries. What do you do with a bully? Well, here's the thing, and I know some parents are like, we shouldn't be violent, and we are not violent. I am not a violent person. I don't believe in violence per se. I don't necessarily like wars, but I'm not also a softie where I realize, if somebody was going to break into my house, it's not going to happen. But if somebody broke into somebody's house, then I'm not going to be like, sir, could you please excuse me and leave my property right now? Right now, please. That's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to grab a bat and I'm going to like kick the shit out of that person, because that person does not belong in my house. And so if that's what I would do if somebody was crossing a physical boundary in my house, well, then that's precisely what I'm going to teach my children to do. Why? Because they need to know that with someone that is acting that way, the only way to communicate with that someone is by acting the same way. And it's not like they're acting the same way, but it's like they need to provide a direct consequence that pairs up with how that person's behavior is. Conversation and saying, you don't belong here, this is not right, what you're doing isn't kind to me, that level of conversation is just not where the bully is at. And it's not even, it's a matter of neurology. That bully is not to the level of conversation. They're into actions. So what would I teach my child to do? To pop them right in between the nose, make sure they bleed, and make sure they punch hard. So obviously there would be things that I would do before that, but the part of teaching my child to protect themselves and to set those strong boundaries would be definitely topics, conversations that I would have with my child. But I would get to that point where I'd say, you need to protect yourself. Well, if the guy is much bigger than you, then you're going to grab a bat, and I'm going to totally back you up when you hit that guy with a bat. And then you run so fast that when they call me from the office and they expel you a week from school, I'm going to say that I backed you up, and then we go on vacation to Disney. So, and I know this sounds so crazy, but that is literally what I would do, because your child cannot be getting affected by someone that is choosing to bully them. Okay. Yes, you would take all of the different precautions before that. You would call you would speak to the teacher. You would speak to the parents, if possible, of that child. But don't be afraid to teach your child to protect themselves physically, because that is very important. Teach them to protect themselves physically, teach them to protect themselves emotionally. Should they stand there and listen to someone tell them words that are not going to benefit them and that are degrading to them? Absolutely not. Teach them to remove themselves from that situation, and definitely set limits on the way other people speaking to them. Okay, so that's what I have to say in regards to a child who's being bullied, or who is we need to focus more on the topic of honor and make our conversations more around that and good character, so that hopefully it'll overcome all of and I believe it will overcome all of the whole topic of bullying the way that it's being addressed right now. And by the way, bullying is very much an extreme topic related to mockery. So mockery and teasing, it's something that happens often, like making fun of someone. So if you have a habit or a culture in your family of mocking, of making fun of one another or whatever, then get rid of it, okay? Because that is in itself creating an acceptance in your family for bullying. It's a form of bullying. Mocking and teasing, it's a form of bullying. So just don't do it. It's not kind. It's not kind to mock. It's not kind to make fun of something. Make fun of, not make fun of, but like have fun, but don't make fun of one another because of whatever it is, because they're taller, because they're shorter, because of their name, because of something funny they did. Just don't make fun of one another. Especially the family's more sensitive. Now, in the case of our family, where we're very healthy as a family, then we laugh at things, we remember things, and we have memories of funny things, but it's not mockery per se, okay? We definitely do not mock for anything for the little ones. Like for the little kids, definitely under 12, there's no mockery that is directed towards them or making fun of anything in their life, okay? All right, the next and last question, unless you guys have any other questions. My child is not doing his or her homework on her own. Well, what do you do with that? Well, basically what you do with the fact that a child may not be doing their homework on their own is you, again, have that conversation that they need to be empowered. It is not your job to be nagging them. It's not your job to be reminding them all the time to do their homework. It is your job to guide them. and to help them understand and develop the responsibility that they need to do their work on their own without being told. Do you realize that every time you're reminding them, then you're creating a new habit in their life? Look, you need to let this child live with their consequences. If they get an F, then you're just saying, look, you need to develop a system. Tell the child, you need to develop a system, whether it's alarms or something where you become responsible for your homework. And if you don't do it, then by all means, you'll get an F, which means by all means, people may laugh at you because you get an F, and that's the truth of what happens in class. That's not where, your teacher's not going to be too happy. Then you're going to fail the grade. You might have to go to summer school. You won't get any vacation. Then you'll fail one grade back. And, so you want to play out that long picture of what happens when the child is not doing their homework. Your job is to guide them, but not to do their homework for them. Your job is to support them and to let them know that you're there and available, but not to do their work with them. Okay? So, to do their work with them, but not to be there doing it for them. So make sure that you empower them to take responsibility for their own actions. Don't be saving them all the time. Saving them does not help them in any way. So make sure that they're doing what they need to do on their own. Let them develop their own systems, whether it's a notebook, whether it's somewhere where they write this stuff down, whatever system they come up with, but let them come up with the system. When they're a part of the system and creating a system that works for them, they're also a part of the solution. And because they're a part of the solution, they've now taken ownership in what is happening to them and for them. Okay? Last but not least, I know that we're coming up with elections, and I want to say be very much aware of who you're electing into office, whether it's local office, state office, or national level office, because it's very important for us to know who is coming into office to make choices in regards to our children's education. I particularly, even though I've homeschooled for 16, 17 years, I still believe that the education of children who are going to regular public school systems still affects me. Private schools education still affects me because those children are going to go out into the world and they're going to be running our city. They're going to be running our companies. They're going to be working in our offices. And so I want to make sure that they're also receiving the best education that they can. So that, like, for instance, recently in Miami-Dade County, they passed where they said, okay, we're going to decrease or limit the amount of testing that children go under, because literally all of the time that would be spent was in just testing and preparing for tests. And that's just not right. Children were not actually learning. So it's a very good thing that now they are going to diminish the amount of test takings that children need to go through. And now there's going to be more active learning. So those kind of things need to continue to happen. And I'm understanding this now more and more. So become aware of it. Like, as you hear it, become engaged of what's happening with children's education. And do know that academic education, what you are delegating to the public school system or to the private school system, when you delegate, that you're just doing that, you're delegating, but you're still responsible for their education. You're still very much in charge of what they're reading, of what they're learning. You should be in charge of what they're reading, what they're learning, and how education is taking place for your child, okay? You need to make sure that your children are learning critical thinking skills, that they're able to process things logically and able to make decisions, not just based on themselves, but based on what's better for everyone around us. Who does that? You do that at home. Okay, you do that in conversation. You do that by making sure that even at home on the weekends, they're reading great books, that they're watching movies that are motivational, that they're looking at things that are inspiring to them. Because academic education is just one part, what they do in school is just one part of the success of them becoming well-rounded. So anyway, guys, I hope you've had fun in this time, in this almost hour that we've been sharing about back to school Q&A questions. I hope that you've had a great time learning. I hope that you've learned something new and you were able to implement one new thing that you can put into your, just implement into your family. And if that is the case, people, then make sure that you share with others. Let them know that they can visit me at shirleysolis.com, shirleysolis.com. And to learn more about Powerful Parenting Academy, make sure you visit me at shirleysolis.com/parenting. shirleysolis.com/parenting, because there you will learn the full active presentation on what my 4-pillar blueprint is all about. My 4 pillars is my signature programmed to transform families and make them absolutely powerful, because your children deserve the best. You deserve the best. And, you know, nobody taught us to be good parents, but I am going to teach you how to be an amazing parent, how to be a powerful parent, how to be the parent that your children deserve, because they deserve it. They deserve better than what you had. Not that you had it bad, but they can have it better. And we are living in times where a child will either grow up to make a difference or be the child that needs to be made a difference of. So be that kind of person today. Be that proactive parent today that is making a difference in your child's life by at least owing it, owe it to yourself to look into Powerful Parenting Academy and doing your due diligence to know whether it's for you or it's not, because it might not be for you. Like, you may be doing okay, but if you want to be doing okay, then that you probably don't want to be on my list, because I'm all about making you and your children awesome and powerful and amazing. Okay. All right. Well, if you have any further questions, feel free to email me, shirley@shirleysolis.com. And it's been great spending time with you. You guys are amazing. I love you. Have a great day. Bye.